Hey Lauren, how's it going today?
Good. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Oh, man, I'm excited to talk with you. Um, it's we get to see each other and hang out at different times during the year, at different events and things. So it's neat to get to dive into your real like financial backstory.
Yeah.
First question is, what's the one thing that you do, maybe that others may not do, that you feel has been like the key to your financial success so far?
I think the biggest thing, honestly, that's been the key to financial success is that I always align my values with where I put my money. Um, so for that, we did things so bold as to sell our house because it was just too big for us and it was too much money and we could afford a smaller one. So we really, no matter what kind of money we make, we still spend the same exact amount. We have a van that has 160,000 miles on it that's like falling apart, and I just don't care what anybody thinks about my van. Um, so we really, I guess, have set ourselves apart by just not really caring what other people think and doing what we do.
Right. But how do you stay tuned into those values? Well, maybe a better question is how'd you figure out what those values were to begin with?
Yeah. So um, I think the biggest thing for me is when we were, back years ago when we were in $40,000 of the debt, we had a custom built house, we had two brand new cars, but yet we were $40,000 in debt, right? So when we started looking at the things we were spending our money on, it was like going out to eat, our housing, our vacations, our cars. But yet, the things that we valued the most were our faith, our family, our friendships, and financial security. So, what we were spending our money on was not spending it on any of those things because in fact it was going against everything that we really valued. And so we like decided to just kind of change our whole lifestyle and say, okay, the things that we value are our family, so we're going to get a smaller house that we can afford and that we are around each other all the time because we love each other and we want to be around each other. We have four kids, and then we value financial security. So we're not going to go and spend extravagantly. We're going to put it in savings so that by the time it we don't have to wait until we're 70 to retire. Those are the kind of, I guess, the thought process that we had to go through.
Yeah, yeah. And staying sort of in tune with that. Do you do anything regularly to check to make sure you guys are still kind of spending in line with that or living your life in line with those values?
Yeah, we do. We call it the monthly budget night. So the last Sunday of every month, Mark and I get together and sit down and hash out our budget together, and then we set up the plan for the whole next month. So before the month even starts, we know exactly where our money's going that month, so that nothing is surprising. If something surprising does come up, then we have an emergency fund or savings to kind of help with that. But our month to month stuff, that's a regular thing that we do. The last Sunday of every month, we do the budget night, is what we say.
Hmm. Hmm. So for folks who may not feel like they're maybe spending in line with their values right now, what would you say to them, in terms of how to maybe go about doing that?
I think the first thing they need to do is, well, number one is figure out what your values are, right? So you need to write those down somewhere. What are the things you value the most in life and what your future goals are? A lot of times, we have this thing that when we sit down and work with couples, I sit down and we call it the financial bucket list. And it's a list that it sends your values out, separates it into six different categories. And so you write down your values like financially, retirement, fun, vacations, family, and you write down all of your values in these certain categories. And then, I mean, we both know like money isn't just money. It like attaches itself to everything in our life. So when you write down your goals, then you have to figure out like those are the things that are valuable to you. So I think people need to figure out what their values are. And then they need to figure out how to change their spending. In order to change their spending, they have to know how much they're spending. So we always have people go through and figure out the past 3 months of their spending, and then you can categorize like, okay, I've been spending $3,000 a month on groceries or whatever. That's obviously not helping me. So I need to cut that down to 1,000 or whatever because it's not, eating out all the time is not a value of mine unless you wrote it on the paper. I mean, unless you're like a restaurant connoisseur or something.
Yeah, yeah.
um, so that's kind of how I teach people how to do it, to figure out where their value system lies and how to align their spending.
Love it. And I'm sure people could find resources for doing that. Maybe the monthly checkup or just budgeting in
Mhm.
general on your website, right?
Yeah, we actually have a 15-page budget pack printable that you get when you sign up for our email list. And that comes with a spreadsheet and stuff. So it comes with all those worksheets that I'm talking about.
Cool. Take us back to the beginning, your financial story, that moment you realized you needed to become a master of your money.
Yeah, this is kind of funny. So the moment that I realized, and I'm going to get, so my book, The Recovering Spender, is out on bookshelves, but I'm going to get a little deeper than what that book talks about. So you get the sneak peek.
All right.
So I was in a direct sales company called Mary Kay Cosmetics. Are you familiar with it?
Absolutely. I'm here in Dallas. Aren't they
Yes.
headquartered here?
Yes, I've been there before for
Yeah.
Mary Kay conferences.
Yeah.
Do you know, have I told you this story before?
I vaguely remember. Yeah.
Okay. So when I was 23, I joined Mary Kay because I wanted to really focus on making extra money. So I was working as a drug and alcohol counselor, and I was pregnant, and I didn't want to work in that stressful environment, but we need the extra cash. So I thought, okay, I'll do Mary Kay, and I'm an all or nothing person. So of course I jump right in and jump to the top. In 11 months, I won a pink Cadillac.
Wow.
And I drove it around proudly. And but what people don't know is that in order to win that pink Cadillac, I had to charge $10,000 in one night. $10,000 in one night. Yeah, that's not. Yes, you're hearing that right. Um, Now, I had always had an issue with spending years before. I would get us into credit card debt, and it would be like 2,000. So we'd get our tax return and then just pay it off. That was kind of our system that we would
Right.
do. But this time was different because now I had $10,000 of credit card debt that was on top of our other, like, whatever. I don't even remember exactly how much we had, probably 5 or 6,000 of credit card debt on top of that. So now we're in like $16,000 with the debt. And so then my spending just, like, in order to keep up the appearance and everything, my spending just got out of control. I would go shopping all the time. I would get my hair and my nails done. Had no idea how much money we had or what we were doing. We were going out to eat all the time. We were just out of control. And looking back, I say out of control, but I look back and I feel like from the people that I help now, regardless of whether, Mary Kay was involved, like, they're in the same spot, just having absolutely no idea where their money's going. So fast forward, we are now in 2008, and we're in 2006. So I have a 1-year-old child, and my pink Cadillac was just repoed from my driveway.
Oh my goodness.
You did not know that? Yeah.
No.
Because I quit the company because I realized that, first of all, it wasn't making me any money, even though it was like I was a director, like I was head up. I wasn't making a ton of money. And so I called the company, and they came and repoed the truck while all my neighbors were watching. So that was pretty embarrassing
Yeah.
to see, like, when we lived in like an upper middle class neighborhood. So everybody was talking, like, did you see her pink Cadillac got like wheeled down the driveway? And it was like a big Mack truck. Like, they didn't just send like a little tow truck. They sent like
Of course.
one of those trucks that carries like 15 cars down my little suburban street. So
Oh,
everybody
no.
saw it. So anyway, the pink Cadillac gets repoed, and that was a turning point for me where I'm like, I'm done. I'm just done with all of this. I can't do it anymore. And so I came clean to Mark, my husband, about all the debt. At that time, we were in $40,000 of the debt. It had gone from about 15 up to about 40.
And he wasn't aware, or he was
He
mildly
wasn't.
aware, or just not paying attention?
Well, see, I always did the bills we got married young at 21. And my mom was the one who took care of our family finances. So when we got married, I just took over the finances thinking like that's what you do. Now, I am not a good numbers person. I am now. I'll take that back. I am now, but back then I wasn't. And so I would just miss paying bills all the time and get late fees and bounce checks and spend on the credit card, not realizing how much I was spending. So he knew that we were in a little bit of debt, but he had no idea how much debt we were in. And so that I had to come clean to him and tell him. And so that was a turning point for me. And then 2 years later, we were debt free. And a year after that is when I started my website to teach people how to do exactly what we did to get out of it. And I think like psychological stuff is really what I like to focus on, because for me as a spender, it's like you have to kind of retrain your brain almost to think a different way. So,
Yeah. So what kind of changes did you make mentally during that debt payoff, that 2 year period, mentally to make that
yeah.
happen? And what were some of the tactical moves you made too?
Yeah. So, mentally, this was one of the biggest things that I had to keep telling myself. Um, I talk about this a lot on my website. It's when the pain of staying broke becomes greater than the pain of changing your spending habits, that's when it's going to stick. So I had budgeted and failed and budgeted and failed and gone over budget. I mean, I was like, one of those people that tried budgeting like 10 times before I actually got it. But it got to the point where I was just so sick and tired of playing that game that I was really willing to make the changes that I needed to make. So every time I picked up something, like a lip gloss, I literally would like be in a store and be like, is this more important than paying my mortgage? Like I would have to really make those decisions and say no to myself, which was really hard, like really hard. And so in order to make it easier on myself, I had to set up certain boundaries. So, a lot of these boundaries I actually still do today.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is I can't go into Target alone.
Mm-hmm.
That's like boundary number one. I always say it's like
I
the
have that
gates of
rule
heaven.
too.
You do? It's like the gates of heaven open up on me and the dollar spot just jumps in my cart. So I don't go into Target alone. I don't go to certain stores like IKEA or Hobby Lobby. More recently that I've struggled with is Sephora, which is a makeup store because I love makeup so much. So I set certain boundaries for myself of stores that I just can't go in by myself, because
Right.
if I do, I know that I'm setting myself up for a temptation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the big things that I did. I stopped using credit cards. We shredded all of our cards in a paper shredder, and we went to using just a debit card, checks, and cash, mostly cash. And actually, when I was doing research for my book, I found this interesting kind of little tidbit. And it says that I was doing this research on the brain chemistry of people who overspend versus people that like to be savers. And what we found in this research is that people that are spenders actually have a different chemical brain composition than people that are savers. So there's this place in the brain called the insula, and it's responsible for danger signals. So if you're gonna if you like are about to slam your hand in a van door or something like that, your insula will ignite and be like, pull your hand out, you're gonna get hurt, right? So what they found is when the insula kind of triggers, you get yourself out of danger.
Right.
But what they find is that people that are spenders, their insulas don't trigger very often. So they don't see the danger of their spending when it comes to money. And so once I learned this a few years ago, and I'm like, okay, so there's actually something in my brain that's not working. So I need to set boundaries around myself so that I don't get myself into trouble.
Yeah.
And I still, regardless of how good I am with money now, I still, I have a business credit card that we use for business expenses, but I don't have a personal credit card. I don't use it. We use cash and checks still. So
part of that 2 year process, was there a system you were following? I know a lot of people do Dave Ramsey for debt reduction. Were you doing Dave Ramsey or?
we started off doing Dave Ramsey, and I like some of his principles. There wasn't everything that I 100% agree with, but I do love his cash envelope system.
Right.
I really love that, and we use that a lot. That really helped us. And the baby steps are great. So yeah, and the emergency fund and the debt payoff method, like I agree with most of his stuff. So we did go through a Dave Ramsey course like years, probably, I don't even know, maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
But then it was we took the Dave Ramsey course and then we went off the deep end again. So,
right.
Yeah.
Didn't stick till this last time with the
Right.
with the repo, right?
With the repo, right?
Oh man, yeah, I've got that image burned in my brain now. So the debt piece has been huge for you, getting that knocked out. But I know there's probably been some other big financial goals that you've had along the way that you've achieved. Could you talk about something else that you guys have done the past few years?
Yeah. So, I mean, on top of paying off all of our credit card debt, we paid off all of our student loans. We paid off all of our cars. We have about $45,000 left to pay on our mortgage. So,
Let's talk
our
about
mortgage.
that. You mentioned earlier in the conversation about moving into a smaller home.
Yep.
Was that during the kind of debt payoff period where you made that decision as well?
Well, actually, so we had a custom house built for us back in 2005,
Mm-hmm.
and it was right after our house was built. Our builder went bankrupt and left half of the development unfinished.
Mm.
And so and this was right around the real estate mortgage crisis. And so within 3 months, our house was underwater by $60,000. So 3 years later, when we decide we want to get out of debt, we realized that we can't sell our house and even pay off our mortgage because we're that underwater with our mortgage. And so during that time, Mark actually found out he was getting laid off from his job, and we had to move back to New York. And because of that situation, we were able to qualify for a short sale on our house. And so we sold that house as a short sale and were able to free and clear pay off the mortgage. We didn't make anything on the sale, but I think we might have had to pay $4,000 or something to get out. Then we moved into a 800 square foot townhouse, which was it was so tiny, but our mortgage went from like $2,200 a month down to $800 a month, including utilities. And so we freed up like almost $1,400 a month to just attack debt.
Nice.
So after we rented that townhouse for a year is when we bought our current house, and we bought it. We bought it for under 100,000. It's a very humble little house, but we just didn't want to spend a lot of money, and so we have more than half of our mortgage paid off in the past 5 years.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
The willingness to make that move, but then also stay aggressive with your payments and stuff. So,
hmm
as someone in
One
a,
other
go
one
ahead.
other big one other big financial thing that I want to talk about is that happened about 2.5 years ago when my husband was able to quit his job and come home and work with me. That
Mm.
was like our biggest thing. That because of my blog and using that to generate extra income, it
Yeah,
actually was able to make enough so that we run it together now, and it's our full-time job. So that's been an incredible blessing for us to be able to be together and raise our family together, and just pretty much do whatever we want. We
yeah,
love it.
yeah, absolutely. That's huge. It's massive, life-changing
Uh-huh.
stuff.
Yep.
Give us some perspective. When the car was repoed, you were technically still doing a little bit with Mary Kay. Were you also working as well still at that point? Or were you,
Yeah. So when the car was repoed, I actually just quit the company outright. I was
gotcha.
done.
You quit
Yeah.
Mary Kay,
And
but were you
right.
still fully employed somewhere else?
No, actually, I had to go out and get a job,
Okay.
which was like really painful for me. I actually went out and I had a lot of server experience before. I went out and got a job as a waitress at a Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
Gotcha.
So I worked 5 or 6 nights a week
With
for about
the newborn at home.
with a newborn for about a year and a half. And I was the only female server in a staff of 21 very rude guys. um, so this is I don't this is kind of a side note, but I think you'll think this is funny. So I was the only girl, and they always would treat me like crap all the time. So I
Really?
started, yeah, all the time, because it was like a good old boys club.
Huh.
And so I started making pies. Every Saturday, I would come in with 5 homemade pies, and then I
What?
was everybody's best friend. And I started making good money.
My goodness, you got first choice at tables those
Ex-
night.
I did it every single week. We did it for a year and a half. I made pies every week for these guys, and some of them are still good friends now.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like pie.
I'll bring some pies to FinCon next
Okay.
year.
That's cool. And so Mark, your husband, he was doing what during that time? What kind of work was he doing?
He is an actuary.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so lots of numbers, which is funny. Like, he's really good with numbers. So I don't know why the heck he didn't start the budget like when we first got married, and loves spreadsheets. So we're complete opposites. Like, he's a saver, loves numbers, loves spreadsheets, and I'm a spender who hates spreadsheets and doesn't like people telling me what to do.
Well, Mark obviously was tired of people telling him what to do because he wanted to be home working with you, right?
Exactly, exactly. So it
Not
worked out
not that
really
you don't
well.
still tell him what to do or anything.
Right. If he was sitting here with me, he'd be like, yeah, right.
But yeah, talk about that his choice to try to come home and be working with you there on the site, and and you know what and how you guys sort of navigated that because that's a big leap, you know,
Mhm.
without a steady paycheck coming in.
Yeah. So thankfully, my blog had been around for about 4 years and had been making for the previous 2 years about the same as his salary. So we were able to pay down our our mortgage and make sure that we got all of our cars paid off and put a lot in savings. And so um, we we were done having kids at 3 kids, but then we had a little blessing baby, and she was actually colicky. And so she cried pretty much like the first year of her life.
Mm.
And I was trying to run the business, and he was working, from he would leave at 6 in the morning and not come home till 6 at night. He had an hour commute either way. I have 3 other kids at home, and I'm working full time on my website. And we just had to sit down, and it went back to the value thing again. Like, is this the life that we want to live? If nothing changes right now, like we're gonna go crazy. And so we sat down and talked about it, and kind of took a look at my blog income and what we could do, and cram some numbers together, and figured out that we could make it work. And so he put in his notice, and we haven't looked back since. So yeah, it was in part because we were making the same amount of money, but it was a lifestyle choice for us. We just thought we want to be around our kids as much as we can, and he was missing out on them. Like, he was only seeing them like maybe an hour a day, and he wanted more. So it was a lifestyle change for us. And
Sure.
I'm so thankful. The first year was hard, but I'm so thankful that we did it.
Should you have done it sooner?
I don't know if Mark would have done it sooner, to be honest. I think it was having Abby, our youngest child, that really made him
Hmm.
like, this is not working, because it got to the point where it's like, Mark, if you don't quit your job, I'm selling the website. Like, I can't do it anymore. And then we saw, like, the job is stuck, like your income is stuck. Websites, you can grow and make more money and make your own hours. And it just seemed like a better option for us, for our family. So I don't think he would have quit had it not been for that. Like, this is what's going to happen if we don't.
Right. What kind of drastic measures? Because obviously, when you leave a steady paycheck like that to start living on one income at that point,
Mhm.
what measures did you guys take? Did you do like a spending freeze, or did you sell some things, or how did you kind of buckle down in those initial months, I guess, or did you?
Yeah, you know what? We pretty much have been running the same exact budget for the past maybe 9 years, 8 or 9 years. Maybe, you know what? I'll go back to the past 6. So when we moved from that big house, we we have never been a couple in the past 6 years that if our income goes up, we spend more. If our income goes down, we spend less. We've been living on the same exact budget for the past 6 years. And so they're really we're a pretty frugal family. And so honestly, we didn't really need to cut back because we could afford the lifestyle that we were living. We could afford, and we live, like I said, we don't really go on extravagant vacations or spend a ton of money on food. Like, we're pretty simple. So we didn't have to change anything. But one of the biggest things we had to figure out was things like life insurance and health insurance. Um, what are we going to do with those kind of things? That was kind of the biggest hurdle we had to overcome, I think.
Hmm. Hmm. So you were already kind of spending at that one income level, it sounds like.
Exactly. We weren't
Yeah.
spending all of my blog income was going into the bank, pretty much.
Nice. And by that point, you had paid off all the debt or most of the
Hmm.
debt,
All the debt.
with the exception of the mortgage with the
Right.
smaller home. But now you're
Right.
working your way toward knocking that out.
Exactly.
Um, oh man, so many follow-up questions. I kind of want to hit on the the insurance and health stuff really quick.
Mhm.
How did you guys navigate being self-employed and not having an employer to provide insurance for you?
Yeah. So one of the big things that we did was instead of getting insurance through the marketplace, we use Christian Healthcare Ministries. Our kids were through the state of New York. They have really actually good plans that you can purchase from the state of New York. And so our kids are actually on a state program with Fidelis. And so we don't pay, we might pay like $200 a month or something like that for our kids' insurance. And then we pay $170 a month for our insurance. That's for both of us through Christian Healthcare Ministries.
Gotcha.
So it's not actually an insurance plan. I don't know if you've talked about it on the podcast or on your blog, but it's a group sharing plan. So for us, we pay 170 a month, and then we pretty much pay everything out of pocket. But if there's an expense that's over $1,000, an incident, then they cover everything over the $1,000. So Mark actually had an incident a few months ago where we had to call 911 and take him to the hospital. And that incident itself was $8,500, and we only paid 1,000 of it.
Hmm.
So and CHM, like with the pool of funds that they have, paid the rest of it. So we went that way, and it's been working out beautifully for us.
Christian Healthcare Ministries, that's Medishare, right?
No, it's a totally different.
It's a different
Yep.
one.
So there's Medishare, there's Liberty, there's Samaritans,
Yeah.
and then there's Christian Healthcare Ministries. So and each
Okay.
one has a different benefit. We like CHM because we are a business. We can claim it on our taxes as business insurance because we send the money directly into Christian Healthcare Ministries as a company. Places like Samaritans, you send it directly to a person, so you can't claim it on your taxes.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
so it works better for us.
Well, I should maybe look into that because we're on Medishare, and so yeah, we can't deduct that. But
Yeah, but
hey,
you can CHM, which is what we like.
okay, all right, I'll look into that. I've written about Medishare on my site, but hadn't explored too in deep the other options. So it's good to hear
Yeah.
positive review of that. And then life insurance, what did you do there?
We just actually found an independent insurance broker, and she shopped around for us and got us a really great plan. So we just pay life insurance every month, and it's not very. I mean, life insurance is so cheap. So I don't even know how much we pay, but I think it's under $100 a month.
Okay.
So
Did
we
you
do that.
a policy for each of you, or how did you do
hmm
it?
Yeah, policy for each of us. And it's not whole life. So we're not big proponents of whole life. So we do term. So we each have a term policy out on each other. And then we don't have eye insurance, like, vision or dental. We just pay out of pocket for that. We
Right.
just keep a savings account that we put money aside for medical stuff, and it just works out better for us.
Cool. I want to go back to the house that you've downsized to,
Mhm.
because that's attractive to me, and I know that's probably attractive to a lot of people. But they may look around their neighborhood and say, "There's really nothing in my neighborhood, in my school district, that is a suitable downsize." So, how did you guys navigate that and get comfortable moving into the type of neighborhood that had a more affordable housing?
Yeah, so we live in Oswego, New York, which is as far upstate New York as you can get pretty much without going into Lake Ontario. So when we were moving back to New York, we looked at a few different options on where to live. And Mark is from Oswego, and I'm from a place called Saratoga Springs, New York, which has higher housing costs. Mark worked in Syracuse, which is about an hour away from Oswego, and the housing costs were really expensive there as well. So when we were looking on where to move to, we really took housing costs into, we just were like, where are we going to be able to live the cheapest? So that was one of the big reasons why we chose to live in Oswego, is because we wanted our housing to be, really affordable. But another thing, I think people think like, they want to, live in a certain neighborhood because of schooling and that kind of thing. And I get that. Like I was like that, years ago. And we had a gorgeous neighborhood with a gorgeous school and all that stuff. But we looked in an older house. I mean, our house was built in 1920. So it's almost 100 years old. It's got character. and it's got a lot of things wrong with it cosmetically. Um, but we work on those things and we save up for them and we do them ourselves. And it just feels better for us. Like I would rather put money in a savings account and save it for, for retirement than put it into my house and never get it back really. So that was what we had. It was another one of those value things. We wrestled with it, and we've even gone house hunting a few times since we've lived in this house. We've lived in it 6 years, and it's getting a little tight for us with 4 kids and only one bathroom. But every time we go to look at a house, I get sick to my stomach because it just means more money, and I just am not willing to pay for that right now.
Yeah, and you've almost got this one paid off, right?
Exactly, and our kids know nothing different. Like they just don't know anything different, and their friends are all there, and we live across from a park, and so they really put it in perspective for us. I think last time we went house hunting was like a year and a half ago, and our son even said to us, well, like, why are we getting a house? This one's fine. We don't need a new one. All my friends are there, and we're like, okay, we're done. We like think a little bit about it, and then we go look, and we're like, I just don't want to spend money on that. Like, there's more. I'd rather go to, you know, Spain or something, or like
Yeah,
travel, or I don't know. It's just not a value of ours, I guess.
right. Well, and your kids are, what's the youngest one's age now?
She's 3, so we
3.
have 11, 7, 5, and 3.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
you got 15 years. You're kind of staring down here. I'm in the
Mhm.
same boat, so I can say that
Yep.
of sort of having them in. They are in public school, right?
No, actually, we sent him to a small private
Small private.
Christian school. Yep.
But you're totally satisfied with the school, and you see them
Hmm.
being part of that going forward. So,
Yep.
um, and so you see yourself sort of in this same mode for the next 15 years or so, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And we actually work with an independent guy to help us with our investments and stuff now.
Okay.
So he kind of helps manage our investments. And our goal now is to be able to put aside half of our income every year to be able to retire if we wanted to in 10 years. And I know that that's not the average person. You know what I mean? Like I'm very well aware that that's not the average person, but I also think that we've worked so hard to get to where we are right now that we could go afford a bigger house and have brand new cars and all that stuff, but we just like why? For who? To
Right.
impress who? I don't know. We're fine with what we have. And we feel very thankful that we're not stuck in this like starter home kind of mentality, I guess, that people think like, oh, this is a great starter home. Yeah, but what if it's like my only home? Like, is that's okay, right? You know? So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit more about the future goal then. You mentioned potentially retiring in 10 years. So you'd
Hmm.
potentially be retired even before your kids finish high school,
Right.
or have the option to retire, I
Have the
guess.
option. I don't think I'll ever retire because I'm just like a busy bee, but
Right,
uh, the option to retire if we wanted to in 10 years.
right, right.
So,
And so that means, traveling as much with the kids during the summer months or breaks.
mhm.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And to be able to, on top of that, be able to fully fund our kids' college, 529 plans, so that they don't graduate with this like crushing student loan debt.
Hmm.
So that's definitely a job of ours, and to be able to teach our kids from the mistakes that we've made is really a goal of ours too, to pass it on. And I think they get it. Like we talk about it all the time. So but those are, yeah, we have big goals, but we know that if we work hard, I think so many times people get stuck in their current financial situation that they can't feel like they can ever change. Um, and that's just not true. Like so many opportunities out there now to work and make extra money that, that pain of staying broke has to go away because there's so many opportunities out there.
I love that. Let's share with folks, if you have them, more tools and services that you use or have used kind of along the way to help you. Obviously, it sounds like you developed some of your own stuff along the way,
Hmm.
but what kind of tactical tools and services do you guys use on a regular basis?
Okay, so one of the things that we use, there's a few different things. We actually just switched to using Tiller. Are you familiar with Tiller
I've
at
heard of
all?
it. Yeah.
Okay. So what we love about this is that every day Tiller is a spreadsheet, kind of customized spreadsheet. And every day our bank account transactions from that day go into a spreadsheet at a certain time every day. And then it categorizes them for you. So you can easily keep track of your finances without having to go through and make your own spreadsheet. And they'll make one for you and customize it and everything. So we use that to kind of balance our monthly budget. We also use, I actually developed, I don't have one right in front of me, but a planner that is like a personal finance planner. And we use that to keep track of our schedules and what we're having for dinner. We're like proponents of meal planning. And so we use that, and that's called the personal finance planner. Some other things that we use, we have some accounts in Betterment for investing, for life insurance. I don't even remember what we have for life. We use an independent person for life insurance. I'm trying to think of what else. Christian Healthcare Ministries, good old cash. It's what we use the most, honestly. And we just do a lot on pen and paper and shared Google Docs as well.
How'd you find the financial planner that you use?
I made it.
No, not the book planner. Sorry,
Oh,
the advisor that you use.
the advisor. So he's actually we've been watching him for a couple of years. He's a friend of a friend, so we've been spying on him for a few years to see how well he does, and we've had a couple recommendations from people that know him. So that's how we use him as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, switching gears a little bit, I mean, obviously you've become a financial pro here and built, entire brand around being a financial expert. But if you had to pick one thing and say, this is kind of an area where I still kind of suck at in terms of personal finance, what would you say it would be?
Oh goodness. I thought you were going to say one part where I'm really good at. I wasn't prepared for the suck at question. Um, I mean, the big thing for me is I still can't use credit cards. Like, there's so many people that do all this credit card churning and points and, free airlines and all that I just cannot do that. Like, I just know my weakness. And so, um, I just know that I just can't do this. That's one thing that I really suck at is being able to use a credit card and use it for my benefit. I just don't even touch it.
Yeah, yeah, but you look for other ways to get rewards in your life, surely,
Hmm.
from your spending. Can you maybe talk about
Yeah.
some of those things you do, whether that's using a coupon site or whether that's using some kind of reward site or, you know.
I use Swag Bucks.
Okay.
So I use that as my search engine and also take surveys and stuff through there. And I shop through there whenever I'm shopping. So at this point, I already have $400 in Swag Bucks in my account
From
that
how
I'm saving
long? How long has that been?
from this past year.
Gotcha. Is that
Uh,
typical about what you can earn?
I would
Four or
say,
five hundred a
yeah,
year?
I would say around 4 or 500. And I keep it in there and then I cash it out for gift cards for Christmas.
That's
So,
nice.
so
That's a good Christmas cash there.
exactly. So I do that for Christmas savings. So I already have like my Christmas money already set aside and I don't have to worry about it. Um, I'm trying to think of what other things that I use. I mean, I coupon. I still do. I don't coupon as much as I used to. I love Aldi. Like, do you have Aldi there?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's my favorite. It's like that's my favorite place on earth. We love that.
You can go there by
Um,
yourself.
I can go to Aldi by myself. Yes. It's fine. Sometimes I'm like the special buys. I'm like, ooh, no, I can't buy that. It's not on my list. Can't buy it. Um, so I do use some of those. I use certain apps. I can pull up my phone right now. Um, I use Ibotta
Yeah.
and Checkout 51 and this app called the Flip app. The Flip app has like you can compare prices across stores. So if you're like at Walmart and you're like, I wonder if this is cheaper at Aldi, you can just search and see between the stores. So I use that. To get coupon matchups for like stores that I shop at, I use this app called Favado.
Hmm.
That's Favado. So when I'm trying to find deals, we do that.
Were you a Perk Street user when it was out?
No, no, I wasn't.
Um, Someone needs to come up with a debit card reward program again.
Yes, I know. I know they really do.
You should do that.
Um, I should do that. Why not? I'll add it to my list, right? There's also this new cool app which I really like that's called Proactive Budget,
Yeah.
and I I actually met them at FinCon, and I've been looking into it because it's kind of like the cash envelope system, but with a debit card attached to it. And I think we're going to try it out because sometimes it's frustrating when you use cash that, like, Mark is already at the store and he didn't know he had to get this one thing, but he doesn't have the cash envelope for whatever. So then he has to come home and get it. And so that might be something we're looking into that.
Yeah, we've heard a lot of recommendations for that new tool. So
Yeah.
look out for that. Looking back over this past several years, making these changes back, way back in the car repo days, and
Uh-huh.
moving houses, and kind of all the financial ups and downs you guys have had. How do you feel about it all now, looking back?
I feel incredibly grateful, honestly. I think I'm a big believer that if you use your mess the right way, you can really turn it into a message to help other people. And with how many people come to our website every day and how many emails I get every day of people feeling like they can really relate to me, because I'm a different kind of finance expert. I'm a spender. I'm someone that's not typically good with money, but yet has found a way to teach others how to be good with money, even though we're not naturally good with money. And, the people that read my book and say, I've never been able to talk to a finance expert that I feel like gets me. And I get you. So that to me, I feel like everything that we went through and learned is all for a purpose. So I'm incredibly grateful for it because now we get to live our life to teach people exactly what we've gone through. And that is the greatest blessing to me, that I really get to pass on the information and be a voice for people that feel like they can never, nobody can ever relate to them. That's really awesome. So I'm incredibly grateful. And I embarrass myself sometimes sharing too much information about my past spending stuff, like shoplifting and all that jazz that I used to do. But it's good. I try to be really real with people that come to my website and read my stuff and, be like them. So I'm very grateful.
Well, I'm grateful for you for being on the show and for sharing your story. And I know it's going to help a lot of folks. So keep doing what you're doing. I love it. I mean, it's the whole point of my podcast, is to have these conversations, because I really earnestly believe this is what creates change. It's what's worked in my
Yep.
life as well, is having these frank conversations about money and kind of tearing down the walls that separate us from being educated about it. So
Yep.
thanks for being
Yeah.
part of it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, where can folks find out more about you and maybe that shoplifting story you just dropped on me there?
Surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I talk a lot. I talk actually about that story in detail in my book, which is called The Recovering Spender. And people can find me at laurengreutman.com. And on there, they can download that printable budget pack that I told you about. And also, we have tons of articles, and I have a YouTube channel and a Facebook page, and I do Facebook Live and all that kind of stuff. And then they can check out the planner at thepersonalfinanceplanner.com.
Good stuff. I'm sure they will.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Lauren.